Hello, this is the Commercial Landscaper Podcast with Robert Clinkenbeard. This show will transform your leadership by developing all areas of your life, business, family, personal and health. Only by fine-tuning yourself will you truly operate at a highly functioning leader. Super excited today to announce that we're just surpassed the 100th edition of the Commercial Landscaper Show. And we're going to see better things from this year. We're going to be introducing some education, courses in leadership and sales that you could apply and join and try to improve yourself. So hopefully you can join us in some of these courses and reach out if you want to hear some new guests. This is all about bettering you, bettering your business, and make you function at a super high level. Thanks again, everyone. Cheers. Hi, this is Robert Clinkenbeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm excited today to be joined by Jerry Schill. We have been chatting quite a bit over the last few weeks. I saw you at the Aspire conference, and then we chatted a couple of times on the phone. So excited to get you on the show today, Jerry.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So, Jerry, tell me, I know a little bit about your background, but I'd love for my audience just to hear about your background, and then we could just dive into some questions after that.
Yeah, so probably my name's Jerry Schill. I'm from the Cleveland area, born and raised here my whole life. My brother and I started the business right out of college. No formal training or education in the horticulture side of the business, but we did do some landscaping during our college years, and just really kind of fell in love with the idea of being creative, or the ability to be creative and kind of start with a blank slate every day and kind of finish with something beautiful, as well as kind of the entrepreneurial aspect of it, where we can go out and kind of sell and do the operations and kind of wrench on production and kind of just make things better. So that's really how we got started. That was in 1993. Probably like most companies, we went through several different iterations of the business, from like a 20 profit center P&L down to 2 or 3. And now it's down to basically 1 with like 3 divisions. So really leveraged a lot of consultants over the years, but really fell in love with the industry, 30 years ago this year, and have really never looked back. So really excited to be doing some of the things we're doing. Some people may or may not know that I went out and raised capital 2 years ago to really kind of prove out our business thesis. I really spent a lot of time focusing on building a business that was going to be sold one day. I am a knowledge junkie. I've been a Vistage member for 12 years. And have been fortunate to spend a lot of time with a bunch of really, really smart people. And I've learned a lot along the way, and have taken some of those lessons and really kind of thought through how I wanted to kind of spend the remaining years of my life in the work world. And I think, and I've shared with you a couple of times, I'm very people-centric, very passionate about our people. I am very humbled and blessed to have been able to receive everything this business has provided for not only myself, but hundreds, if not thousands of families over the years. And I really set out probably 4 years ago to really start focusing on a succession plan for the business. And I'm sure that's some of the things that we'll talk about today during the interview, but I'm happy to be here and look forward to chatting.
Cool. No, thank you, Jerry. That's some great background. I can dive off in different directions. Before I dive into the people part and raising capital, I think that's one of the things that really caught me when we first started talking. Was it was similar to my journey, where not only are you bringing in experts within the industry, but also by using organizations like Vistage and just that outside business help, just again to help your business overall. Tell me a little bit more about why you went that direction, because some people just stick solely on who's in the business, but I use the groups called EO and other different groups out there, just again to build my knowledge of business in general.
Yeah, so I think early on, and it was probably 1993 or 94, a cousin of ours introduced us. He was an attorney in downtown Cleveland, and he was in the Terminal Tower, and there was a group in the Terminal Tower called SCORE. It was a Senior Council of Retired Executives. At the time, it was a bunch of stodgy old guys in wool suits, smoking cigars inside still. And, they just showed up every day, and they did it for free. It was kind of their retirement kind of gig, if you will. And so we took advantage of going down and seeing those folks on a regular basis. And we got a ton of really valuable information out of those meetings. And one of the things that really resonated with us when we first started was, hey, you need to build a business that is going to be sold someday. Now, not necessarily sold in every case, but transition to your children, transition to employees, transition to capital or investment bankers or whoever it may be. But you need to focus on building a business. Don't focus on being a landscaper, was pretty much what he said. And it really stuck with us, and we didn't really understand it at first. But over time, and a couple of years into it, we were hustlers. It didn't matter what we had to do to make money. We figured out a way to make money. And we quickly realized we were pretty good at doing that part of it. So we started really hiring people that would take on some of the things that we were deficient in. We really wanted to leverage the things that we were good at. We didn't have any, preconceived notions on what those roles were or what titles were. We knew we were good at making money. So we started backfilling positions in our own organization with talented people, bookkeepers, accountants along the way, controllers, CFOs today. But we spent a lot of time really networking, not just across the industry, but with other really smart business owners and consultants, because we would quickly identify areas that we weren't good or there was a gap. And then we would seek out consultants or other peer group type environments where we could go in and quickly kind of, surpass or usurp the learning curve, if you will. So that was one thing I think our education really, where our education really served us well. And our parents were really motivated and driven along the way too. So we really always sought out knowledge, and I don't want to say the easiest way, but we always sought out a better way. Guys like Jim Paluch, for years, Jim lived locally, and we would, lean on Jim, and, we've used other advisors over the years like Frank Ross, and a lot of folks know people like that. But I don't think there was a consultant over the last 30 years we didn't use in some capacity. And again, we've been really fortunate that we've been aligned with a lot of really good networking partners, peer groups, such as the things that you're doing, and several other ones. We've been a part of several of them right now, and it's really expanded our network across the country. And it's amazing what this industry is willing to share when you ask.
No, that's great. No, I agree 100%. Just, building some, experts around you just to help you make some better business decisions. Was that one of the pivotal moments for you when you said, roughly 3-4 years ago, you decided to, bring on some capital, look at taking care of your people, that some type of a transition plan there? What was the mindset around, that transition you made a few years ago?
Yeah, so I was in a situation where I raised my children primarily by myself for several years. And when you're doing that with 4 kids and running a business and all the other things that go along with that, all the kids were athletes, I was a coach, and it was a pretty hectic lifestyle. Looking back, it was a lot of fun. I don't think I'd want to do it again.
I hear you.
I really kind of had an opportunity to kind of face my own mortality at one point, where a friend of mine's best friend in his early 50s passed away, owned a $30 million pickle business of all things. Well,
Wow.
he passed away, and he did not have his affairs in order. And it caused a lot of hardship with his family and his employees and the business in general. To the point where I think his, there's not a joke, but I guess his family really wasn't happy with him from the grave, and they eventually ended up losing the business. And it really kind of scared the heck out of me a little bit. And it really made me think about, hey, you think you're being responsible, you think you're doing all the right things. And although I had several pieces of an estate plan in place, none of them were really integrated the way they needed to be. So it really forced me to kind of soul search a little bit and say, okay, you need to get this figured out. So in the event something weird would happen, that at least you've done what you needed to do to make sure that your loved ones are set up. So that was phase one. And then the second part of this, right, was the employees, the company, the business. So it ended up taking me probably 2 or 3 years to really get a solid, holistic estate plan put together to where I was comfortable and had all the levers that could be pulled in the event something, bad happened, whether it's death or disability. I feel really good about where that's at. And I started thinking to myself, if it's going to take 3 years to figure that out, my goodness, how long is it going to take to find a successor for the business? Well, naturally, my brother Jim is has been in business with us for 25 of the 30 years. And I just naturally assumed that would transition to him. And, a key man policy in place, and he could purchase a family out and do all these things. Well, my attorney had suggested, hey, you need to sit down and have these conversations. And I said, oh yeah, well, he's going to take it, right? Well, he just basically said, I don't want to run it. He loves being an operator. He's great at what he does. He's a juggernaut. And I did the same thing with the kids, and the kids all said, hey, look, we're pretty happy living our own lives. And, we're not really interested in it either. So now all of a sudden I was faced with this idea of like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. How did you feel about that? Because that must have been a little bit of a shock for you. You think you're going one direction and suddenly you're like getting that, not necessarily resistance, but you're now having to figure out which direction do I go now?
Yeah. So I was probably a little more taken back by my brother than kids, but I was proud of all of them for being honest with me, and
right.
Obviously lived a great life. This industry has provided 10x what I've ever dreamed of. So I'm really blessed in that regard. But I was happy and proud of the kids for telling me that they weren't really interested in the business. But it meant that I had to go back to my peers and my other network and say, like, what the heck am I going to do? And Vistage was a big part of that, where I had the opportunity to go back and actually present an issue, if anybody understands what Vistage is about, and really talked about this from a very personal perspective. It's like, I need to start planning, right? I'm 50 years old at the time. And I said, I want to make sure that this business is set up for success long after I'm gone, in the off chance that something happens. And I guess when I was really faced with that, I really started evaluating what was going on around me. And although I had surrounded myself with really good people, I began to really start believing I underestimated the impact that I really had on the business day to day. Even though I said I could leave for months, the business would run itself. And I believe that even to this day. I really did underestimate the impact on a day-to-day basis, how you can kind of fix things on the fly and you can make decisions that a lot of people don't want to make. And I realized that what was in front of me was a lot bigger issue than even I had suspected it would be. So I started really exploring my options, several different things like, hey, do I want to look at strategics and possibly go that way? Do I want to do an ESOP with the people? So I interviewed people that had done ESOPs and, to no great success. So all of these things were kind of options, but I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then at one point in the summer, I think of 2018 or 19, I had the idea. It's like, hey, like I was literally watching Shark Tank at some point recently and said, I really want to think about Shark Tank in the business. For the last, from 2012 until about 2018, we had kind of blown the business up, where I'd bought a brother out of the business and really grew it about 8 times over in 6 years.
No, hold on.
Proved out the thesis for the business and put in the software twice, and really hired a business development team and put in a CRM, and really focused on bringing in a good controller and putting the people in place to really build a really solid back office. And had to be a business that I would sell one day, had to be scalable and have repeatable systems. So over that period of time, I really thought, well, we've done a really good job. We were like 86% recurring revenue at the time, which is what, the goal was initially, 100% commercial maintenance and snow and ice removal. So I decided I wanted to kind of pitch the business to some private equity folks, because I had looked at doing an acquisition in Columbus, Ohio, and had no idea what businesses were trading for, and quickly realized after being debt free for several years, I wasn't going to be $5 million in debt. So I explored this whole private equity concept and spent probably the better part of 6 or 7 months exploring that. Was fortunate enough to have met my partner at Argonne Capital. I didn't have a desire to leave, like sell the business, leave, like just get rid of the business, liquidate. I really went out with the idea of raising capital to not only help us grow the business, right, but to scale the business. And when you can scale the business and grow the business, it provides resources to go out and find really, really smart, really talented people that have a passion for what we do, not just landscaping, but are really passionate about business. And I thought, when I started thinking through all these things in my head, was that's the way I want to lead the business. I want to set this business up for success long after I'm gone. And I want to do that by being able to go out and build this owners network, this group of really smart, entrepreneurial minded people, with the help and support of private equity, to go out and raise capital so we can go do that and really amalgamate this big group of, some of the best contractors in the industry, I would say, into this really unique system where when we're done, we're done. We have set the business up for success. We will have, we've got the success and matrix in place today where we're already thinking about like, hey, if I'm going to stick around for 8 more years, like when do we need to start looking for a new CEO? Are we going to groom that person internally? So we're having some of those discussions. So it wasn't just from a personal kind of perspective and planning.
Right.
It was really, what are we going to do? And I will tell you that, some of the partners I brought on over the last 2 years, we've done 8 acquisitions. 5 of those prior owners are still here, and we're all in an almost identical situation that I was in.
That's great.
Didn't have a succession plan and didn't have a generational transition plan with their own children. Then we're also forced to kind of really start thinking through this. And it's been a really exciting journey so far. So that was kind of the genesis of everything that we've done from a business perspective on not going out and raising capital to get out of the business, but to really grow the business and scale the business.
Yeah, I could go so many different directions here. I may have to get you back on, but I suppose one of the first questions that pops up is, the importance of having people or groups around you to help you with some of those, I suppose, self-accountability, those personal challenges or questions that come up. I mean, I think business owners typically, have that ego where they won't necessarily discuss some of the challenges they're facing, whether it be transition plans or succession. What does that exit look like? They don't have those people around you. So they get to a point where they're, maybe a little bit older and they're either tired or they maybe start having health issues, and suddenly they're scrambling to try and find a plan. So how important is it to have those groups or have those where you're basically bearing everything? You're exposing yourself, you're exposing some of your weaknesses and challenges to a group so that they can ultimately help you.
Yeah, so I had a mentor several years ago when I first started Vistage, and I hear humble, hungry, and smart all the time now, right? I never paid attention to it years ago. And he used to always talk about like, hey, the 3 main characteristics I practice every day is being humble, being hungry, and being smart. And he expected that from his leaders as well. And I think, you have to be humble enough. I don't want to speak out of turn. I'll speak for myself. Like, I think all entrepreneurs have an ego to some extent, right? I think that's kind of what makes them motivated and is what drives them, right? You have to have that persona to some degree, but you also have to be humble enough to realize that you're not going to get there by yourself. I mean, everything that we have today or we have built over the years is because of not because of me. And I have been fortunate enough to hire people that will forget more than I'll ever know. I believe that I'm really good at a couple of things, and the things that I'm not, other people can deal with. And that's where the chemistry happens. But you have to be humble enough to know that, respect it, and appreciate it, right? And you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to admit it. And I think you need to do that, right, with a hungry heart. You need to be ferocious in going out and seeking out advice, seeking out wisdom, and seeking out better ways, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to get past the learning curve as quickly as you can, or at least in my particular case, that's how I'm driven. I'm very ornery, very wound up. I don't sit still. And then you have to be smart enough to listen to people. You have to listen to the advice, because what somebody said to me once, vision without execution is hallucination. You could ask all the right questions, get all the right feedback. If you choose to do nothing with it, right? Whether it's because of ego or arrogance, whatever it is, like, you're just kidding yourself. So, humble enough to admit that you need help or you've made mistakes, hungry enough to seek out the help, and then smart enough to actually take the advice and do something with it is really something that I've kind of focused on and lived by. Especially, I would say, the better part of the last 15 years. Early on, we thought we were invincible and we were drinking our own Kool-Aid and all that other stuff. But when you're exposed to other really smart people and you look at, what, Bill Gates did out of his garage to what it is today. I mean, look at Amazon, where it started in an apartment office with no heat to where it is today. I mean, they're regular people that took chances and asked a lot of questions and were fortunate enough to put in the time and the hard work, and it paid off. They're risk takers, but calculated risk takers. And I think that's really kind of how I've lived my life, at least in the past 15 years. I always wanted to be the dumbest guy in the room.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. As long as you're hiring smart people around you. No, I love that last piece you talk about, the smart, where, if you're humble enough to listen, but then take that next step and actually implement or execute on what you've heard. I mean, I hear a lot of, really great conversations at some of the big events like Elevate and industry events, but, they typically go back to their workplace, their office, and then they get sucked into the daily minutia. But if you actually took away some of those action items, then, it can actually help progress the company. Jumping into my next question, if somebody's sitting at effectively ground zero where they've, maybe got 10 or 15-year runway left, how do you start to, if they've not done any of this and they're starting to think about, well, I need either a mentor, I need a group, I need some, capital to come and help me. How do you go out and seek some of those people to build that team? It's almost like building a board of advisors or building that team of expertise around you.
Well, in my case, in 2000 and the end of 2011, going into 2012, when my brother and I decided to kind of part ways and I purchased him out of the business, right? I was scared. So fear really motivated me into kind of taking that next step. We had done a really good job over the years of building a good business. We were extremely profitable. We were for years, double-digit net margins for years. But when we blew the business up, I had an idea in mind. I knew I had to literally blow it up and almost start from scratch. And I'm not even going to lie, for 6 months, I was petrified we weren't going to make it. So out of fear, right, I leaned on every available resource that I could, if not for wisdom, not just in business, but personally, for support, moral support, because I didn't know if I could do it. Again, I was kind of raising children by myself and everything else that was going on in the business. I was scared to death. But I think, again, sometimes you have to be scared straight. Sometimes you just know, and you're excited about it, and you just kind of want to dive right in. I'm not really sure what, everybody's going to be motivated by different things. Mine was definitely fear. And I don't know what it was about that particular instance that made it stick, but I knew that if I didn't react, that, I was not going to make it, that the business was not going to make it. And then that pressure of letting my children down and letting myself down and letting the employees in the company down and letting our clients down, like that weight was just too much for me not to really kind of to dig in and hunker down. Things up to that point had always been really kind of easy, right? Like we grew together. My brother and I had two very different visions for the organization. And although we didn't agree on the direction of the business ultimately, we were brothers and we supported one another, even when we didn't agree on everything. So knowing that you didn't have that kind of help and support standing there with you anymore,
right,
like was frightening. So, again, I think the motivating thing is going to be different for everybody, but whatever it is, you just got to dig in and, inch wide and a mile deep.
Yeah.
But Jim Collins was an eye-opening book for me too. Good to Great. The whole idea of a hedgehog concept. Like if you're good at everything, you can't be great at anything.
Yeah, no, that's a great
That's why our focus went back to commercial maintenance, and that's it. That's all we do. And we have a hard enough time doing that some days, but that's our core focus.
No, it's a great book and great speaker. I almost wonder whether, there's so many people, as you say, that get caught in that comfort zone where they've got a good lifestyle, everything's going easy, and it's just, easy to keep that momentum going. But if you have something happen, that pivotal moment, I mean, you talked about your friend, the colleague that, unfortunately passed away and left this turmoil and large company to handle, whether that was one of your moments or some other ways. But I mean, it's obviously done the trick with you and going through that fear, getting out into that uncomfortable zone has really made you excel. So, hats off to you. Nice job.
I wake up scared every day.
Hey, and you're smiling.
Yeah. I love what I do. I love what I do.
So just to wrap things up here, for the people who are listening and intrigued, and what would be your words of wisdom to pass on to them, for them to maybe start thinking about getting into that uncomfortable zone and take their company up to the next level?
Yeah, I think, again, everybody's story is so individual to them. I mean, I have so many friends that run amazing lifestyle businesses, not just even in this industry, but all sorts of industries. And they love life. I mean, they're completely thrilled. They're happy, they're content. They make the money they need to make and have the things that they need to have. I've always been, and maybe to a fault sometimes, being brutally honest, like I always wanted, I'm not a money guy. I'm motivated by winning. And as I started looking at the business, really looking at the business, I realized that, I could challenge myself and everybody around us to kind of do more. And look, I'm very philanthropic, very quietly, but I love to help people. I'm very people centric. So what I would tell you is find your passion, and then build around that. And to me, it's all about people. I can't provide the opportunities and the lifestyles to our employees unless we wake up every day and push. We push not to get bigger, but to get better. And when we get better, we have better retention, we get better contracts, we raise more money, we generate more profits. We in turn turn around and give it back to the business. So, and the people that are making all that possible. And that's at our core. That's the values that we live by. And then I think you also look at personally, what do you need to do? Like what is important to you personally? If it's going on vacation 5 times a year with your family, I don't recommend you do kind of what we're doing today, because it's a different level of work and a different level of risk and time commitment. But I think when you really kind of get down to it, you really search your soul and figure out what's going to make you happy, what motivates you, or what makes you, gives you that drive. Just build your plan around that. Seek out help, seek out support, wisdom, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, or other industry leaders. Again, I said it earlier today, I am blown away, especially in our industry, how open and helpful and sincere people are at giving you advice and feedback to not only better yourself, but better your company, even competitors, right? Because we're all in this together. We all do what we do because we love it. And if we can leave it better than we found it, that's all I can ask for in the end.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the underlying messages I hear on with guests all the time. Just how good the industry is, how willing people are to help others. And it just makes me happy to hear that message. Jerry, how do people get in touch with you just to learn a little bit more about your story?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I think it's got my cell phone on it. So LinkedIn on cell phone. I'm a serial networker, love to meet people. We've got actually a company in from Michigan today, just kind of doing a facility tour and kind of mentoring them. They're kind of young and up and coming. So we're always interested in either visiting you or having somebody in town, but yeah, I'd love to learn more about people. And, private message me on LinkedIn is probably a good way. Get a hold of us, call the office, and you can fill out the contact forms on the website too. If people still, I don't know.
Okay. Jerry, really thank you for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you today and over the last few weeks. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. Nice job with your journey over the last 10 or 15 years. Very, very impressive. And look forward to getting back on again as a guest and hear more of your journey.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to do it, and I appreciate everything you and your team are doing for the industry. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you, Jerry. Take care.
Thanks.
That was the Commercial Landscaper podcast hosted by Robert Clinkenbeard, and I'm the author of the Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs. If you want to find out more about the show, you're welcome to go to thecommerciallandscaper.com, or if you want to learn more about courses, education, buying some books, Even if you want to just drop a note and suggest a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Again, this is Robert Clinkenbeard, the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. Cheers, everyone.